neighbor, baby.
Hello and welcome to the 366 Bikepacking Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Wall, and in today's show, Trek have just released a full suspension gravel bike which we'll dive into, and we're also going to look at Sofiane Sehili's Trans Eurasia World Record attempt and what went wrong. And we're going to cover what actually is bikepacking and why is it booming right now. Firstly, thank you very much for watching. This is the first ever 366 Bikepacking Podcast full episode. I'm really excited to get going. These are going to be coming out every month, so if there's anything at all you want me to cover, any particular topics or news stories you think might be worth sharing, feel free to stick them in the comments or drop me a message on Instagram. I'll leave all the information in the video description. Let's get cracking. Recently, Trek announced they're bringing out a new full suspension gravel bike called the Checkout, and it was welcomed by mixed reviews, is the best way of me putting it. There was a lot of hate for this bike when I saw it on social media initially. People questioning whether or not this was actually relevant or if it was something that anyone should actually go out and buy. But let me get this out of the way. I think this looks really cool. It is a little bit overkill, but I like to see brands bringing out new and interesting ideas, or at least trying stuff, rather than just sticking to the same old. I mean, how many titanium hardtail mountain bikes do we actually need? Let's start with the specs. It has a rear shock from RockShox 55mm Sidlux. It also has a RockShox Rudy 60mm front suspension fork, so although it doesn't have a lot of travel, it is a full suspension gravel bike. It fits up to 2.2 inch tyres on 700c wheels, which is pretty chunky, and it's got a longer geometry designed for you to get long and low so that you can go fast over the rough stuff. One thing I really liked about this bike is that it has an integrated rear rack, basically 2 screw holes onto the seat stays, meaning that you can attach luggage without having to buy an aftermarket piece of equipment like a tail fin rack, for example. You can just stick stuff on there and you're ready to go. It weighs anywhere from 11 to 13 kilos depending on which spec that you go for, and it ranges in price as well from £3,700 up to £5,500 and beyond. And as far as price goes, that is pretty reasonable. And I can't believe I'm saying that, because that is a lot of money. But the way that bikes are going at the moment, you can spend a lot if you want to. And I feel like that's kind of middle of the pack. And the fact that it's a new bike, has some new features, I don't think that's too bad if you're in the market for something like that. So why did this get so much hate? I was looking at the posts on Facebook and Instagram from bike news companies and from Trek themselves, and the general consensus seemed to be, who is this for and who's actually going to be riding it? I think a lot of people feel that we're all being pigeonholed into more specific niches by the day, so that we have to go out and buy more niche specialist equipment. It's basically a way of companies getting us to buy more expensive products that we probably didn't really need. And this bike kind of fits that description. I mean, who really needs a full suspension gravel bike? I went away and had a think about it, and there were a lot of use cases where I felt it just wasn't necessary at all, like bikepacking around the world, for example. You can't carry a huge amount of stuff on that bike, even though it does have a rear rack. It has got full suspension, so at the front you can't mount anything necessarily without buying a third-party rack, for example. So you can't carry loads of stuff. It's also got such niche components that if you were going somewhere really remote and something went wrong, chances of being able to fix that in some remote African village is probably not going to happen. It's also not for people who are wanting to do things as fast as possible, because it's not that light. It's somewhere in the middle. It's also not cheap. So if you're trying to do stuff on a budget, again, it's not going to be right for you. So when I thought about it in detail, the sort of person that should be buying this is probably someone who is after a bikepacking race win. Somebody who wants to ride as fast as possible for a short period of time, carry a minimal amount of stuff, but also be somewhat comfortable so that they can go as fast as possible for as long as possible. So it's probably some sort of ultra-endurance athlete that should buy this. But those sort of people aren't probably going to be buying them. They're going to be giving them for free. So the sort of person that will go out and buy this is someone with a lot of money, probably a dentist in Wiltshire, who wants to go as fast as possible in a bikepacking race that they've never done before, and then they just put it in the garage and never use it again. Although I do think it is a really cool bike, I just can kind of get the point that it isn't really suitable for most people. Moving on to the next news story, you've probably heard, unless you've been living under a rock, Sofiane Sehili has been attempting a Trans Eurasia World Record cycling from Lisbon to Vladivostok in Russia. The route itself is over 10,000 miles and he was hoping to do it in less than 64 days, which is the current world record. To even attempt something like this takes real dedication. Sofiane needed to ride anywhere from 200 to 300 kilometres a day to be able to break that record. And for 64 days, over 2 months, that takes some doing. But if anyone was going to do it, chances are it was going to be Sofiane. He has won the Tour Divide, he's won the Silk Road mountain race multiple times, and he's literally ridden hundreds of thousands of miles doing bikepacking and bikepacking races. But if you've been following this story, you'll probably know, unfortunately, it didn't go to plan. Sofiane was arrested on his way from China into Russia because they wouldn't allow him entry. Instead, he went back and tried to gain entry another way and was basically caught. He spent 50 days in Russian prison and he has now been released with a fine, but I'm sure that wasn't a very enjoyable experience for him. It's also left a lot of people quite worried because there was radio silence there for a while, and as we know, things in Russia aren't particularly great at the moment. It does raise the question, though, of geopolitics and bikepacking around the world. And unfortunately, it is a real shame, looking at this from a bikepacking point of view, that you can't just ride around the world without issue. It's getting harder and harder to do this because more and more countries are at war with each other, more and more are closing their borders off to tourists, and even some countries are having an argument with their next door neighbour so you can't transit between the two, meaning you have to go around in some cases, which is an absolute nightmare for route planning. I look at this from 2 points of view. One, as a bikepacker, I love to ride my bike anywhere in the world, and I feel it is a massive shame you can't just ride from place to place without hindrance, especially just being a solo bikepacker. You're not going to pose any threat to a country. But I also view this from another point of view. Entering a country that is either at war with another or has explicitly said you're not allowed to come in, it's just really stupid, and I think that was a really daft thing to do, and I'm sure I'm going to get some backlash for saying that. But you knew full well when you were starting this bikepacking trip, to break a record, you'd need to enter Russia, and it's not like this has been happening just for a few months. This war with Ukraine and Russia has been going on for years now, and you probably knew you weren't going to be allowed in. So just trying your luck there was a really foolish thing to do, and it could have gone horribly wrong. So I don't really feel like that was a good example to set for people who are trying to ride around the world or maybe attempt some world records. You shouldn't be reckless like that. That's just my point of view. But, speaking to people who aren't bikepackers, a lot of them said the same thing. Like, why would you do that? Really not a sensible thing to do. So hopefully, he's learned his lesson. He's not going to do that again. But it is also a massive shame. And I do feel it's hugely disappointing that that part of the world has just been sealed off to many of us, and a lot of people who are living there who haven't done anything wrong, who are sort of forced to be living there probably when they don't want to at this point. So that's it for the news. I'm going to be doing just one news story going forward, but I felt that was worth sharing given that quite a major update had happened quite recently that he's now been released from prison, thankfully. So let's move on to the main topic. What actually is bikepacking and why has it become so popular recently? If you search what is bikepacking on the internet, you do get a lot of mixed opinions. And more recently, it does seem that people have been pushed into two camps. One I like to call the purists, who have to do it a certain way. You have to have a certain bike, certain gear, you have to camp, you have to do it on a budget. And the other group of people who kind of bundle bike touring, bikepacking all into one. And I do feel that that is probably the most sensible way to go. I've been doing this YouTube channel for years now, and I've been doing loads of bikepacking specific videos. That's pretty much all I do on here. And I occasionally get comments from people that have just really started to annoy me more and more recently. Either picking up on the equipment I'm using or the fact that I've stayed in a hotel versus camping sometimes, and basically said, oh, that's not bikepacking. And I just get really annoyed because as far as I'm concerned, bikepacking is just going on an adventure on your bike. It really does not matter how you do it, where you go, where you sleep. It's all about just getting on your bike and having an adventure. In my opinion, you can have a bikepacking adventure staying in a hotel or even riding an e-bike. It doesn't matter, but my only rule is you have to go on your bike anywhere and you have to go overnight So basically 2 days is a minimum, and that's it. It doesn't matter what you do and how you enjoy it, just make sure that you do enjoy it. I think it's kind of frustrating because some people are under the impression that it has to be done on a shoestring budget, it has to be done a certain way, otherwise it doesn't count. But not everybody is in the same position as you. Just because you do it one way doesn't mean that that's right for everybody. What if you're a 65-year-old retiree who's got a dodgy hip? Are you going to be wild camping in a bivvy bag every night or doing it on a budget when you've got maybe some money in the bank? Probably not. What if you're disabled and you find it really difficult to go super long distances off-road and you in fact just want to do a little bit on the road and stay in a hotel? That's absolutely fine. However you adventure, just do it your way and don't care about what anybody else thinks. I think it's been growing in popularity for a while, but due to the pandemic in 2020, a lot of people came to the conclusion that they weren't living life enough. They were just going to their mundane 9-to-5 job all the time, basically just revolving their life around work. And I think a lot of people thought, you know what, I need to get out and do an adventure and live my life to the full. I think a lot of us fell under that category. And as a result, people turned to the most cost-effective way of having an epic adventure, and that is by bike. They looked in their garage, found a rusty old bike, dusted it off, put some bags on it that they got for cheap, and off they went. And that was it. They were introduced to wild camping. They thought they'd try that. It's free. Get a little bivvy bag and stay on top of a mountain somewhere and just see how they feel. A lot of people decided they didn't like that and decided to go and buy a tent or maybe even stay in a hotel like I talked about before. But some people were hooked, and I think that sort of love for bikepacking has become a bit infectious to the point where people have started taking pictures, doing videos, doing YouTube channels like mine, and trying to attract more people to do the hobby. I think a lot of people as well have realised it's an accessible way of having a great adventure and maybe even having a holiday out of it as well. When times are tough at the moment, when people are really struggling to pay the bills, just being able to go out for an overnighter in your local area, sleep under the stars and come back is a great way of feeling like you've achieved something and been on an epic trip. It also doesn't really require much skill. As long as you can ride a bike relatively safely, you're going to be going slowly anyway carrying your stuff. You don't need to be an expert to be able to give it a go, so it's appealing to all kinds of people, maybe people who've not ridden a bike in years, and that is amazing to see. Long may it continue. I'm really hoping that more and more people get out on their bikes and enjoy themselves and realise that life is worth living. You don't need to go on some epic adventure across the world and do it a certain way to enjoy yourself. Just get the bike you've got in your garage, get a rucksack if you have to, and just go out and have a local adventure. I think people would be happier for it, and you see more of the world, you make connections, and it just makes life way better. As well as not needing any skill, you also don't need any friends to come with you. If you want to go bikepacking by yourself, you absolutely can. You can just drop your plans and go do something here and now. And I think that's appealing for people, especially in the world that we live in, where a lot of people are becoming more and more insular, sitting on their phones all the time. Just being able to drop everything and go and have an adventure without relying on people coming with you is great. But equally, you can take friends with you and have an amazing time. It's always better when you've got company, but if you haven't got company, it doesn't mean you can't do it, which is amazing. So that's it in a nutshell. COVID gave everyone the mindset shift needed to go out and actually enjoy life and break free from the mundane day-to-day routine they were doing before. But also the cost of living crisis hit, meaning that a lot of people just couldn't afford to go on expensive holidays. So just going on a simple bike trip with some camping equipment was a really inexpensive way of having a great adventure. And I also think that people really were attracted to the freedom that bikepacking gave. Being able to go out on your own terms, by yourself if you want to, wild camp discreetly, or go with your friends and have a bit more of an epic jaunt across a country. You can do it your way, and I think that's very freeing. That's it, we've made it to the end of the first 366 Bikepacking podcast. Let me know your thoughts on this. I'm always trying to make it better, and I'm sure given this is the first one, they will be getting better going forward. Thanks so much for watching and listening wherever you are. Give this video a like, leave a comment, share it with your friends, help it get some traction, and I'm hoping to get some amazing guests coming on in the next couple of episodes. So thank you very much for watching and listening, and I'll see you in the next one.